I'm going to welcome Fredi up. Come on, sir.
Thank you.
Am I right in saying you're a co-founder, Fredi?
Co-founder, yeah.
So Fredi is a co-founder
of
at Voicebox, and I'm going to hand over to you, Fredi, and I'll be back in a minute.
Thank
you, mate.
Thank you very much. It's lovely to be here with everybody. It's also my first Founders 500, so it's lovely to see everybody's smiling faces. I'm sure I'll chat to you all later. I'm one of the co-founders at Voicebox. Technically the director of strategies and partnerships, but we change those titles every 6 months, so they don't mean too much. And we've been going for 6 years. We work with 50,000 young people, 210 sort of schools and organisations, and the mission is about helping boys thrive through promoting healthy masculinity. So we help schools and different organisations promote healthy masculinity in order, thank you, in order to help everybody thrive. We'll talk a little bit more about how that happens and why that is the case, but that's the mission. And yeah, as I said, we've been going for about 6 years now, and it's been quite a journey. So there were originally 4 of us co-founders. One of us has stepped back since. There's now 3 of us. We all met at university studying applied theatre at the Royal Central School of Speech and Drama, which is a bit of a mouthful, but we were all very close friends at that point. And in fact, 2 of them were my flatmates, and one of them was just another friend of ours. And we all started at the same time having a bit of an awareness that there was a need for conversations about masculinity, manhood, what that means, the impact that has on everybody. And so part of our degree was learning about things like feminism, sociology and so on. And one of the things that we realised was that potentially over the last sort of 50, 60 years, that the feminist movement has helped us reimagine what it might mean to be a woman. It's expanded the ideas of what a woman can be. And there's obviously still a lot of work to go, and we're not there yet. There's a lot of work to be done. But we realised that that process of expanding what it means to be a man, what masculinity is, what manhood is, hadn't quite happened in the same way and needed to happen in the same way. We, all of us co-founders, kind of bonded over being quite laddie lads, basically. We all like football, I play rugby, like being quite traditionally sort of laddie boys, and we were suddenly, I went to all boys boarding schools for 10 years. We were all grown up in quite masculine environments, and suddenly doing drama at a drama school. We were in a degree where there were 100 people, 10 of whom were men, so we're suddenly in this very different environment. That was a real learning curve for us to realise actually that there were lots of issues that we weren't aware of, that potentially we had certain views that weren't necessarily very helpful. I know being a man who grew up in all male environments, I definitely had sort of subconscious, if not overt, misogyny as well in my own personality and ideas and so on. So learning about different perspectives, we realised that there was a real need to be having these conversations earlier on, that we would have needed them. We needed them. And we potentially had the skills to start having those conversations with young people in schools and so on. So, we kind of combined our own personal stories, personal experiences. We all had slightly different experiences. My friend Andy was the sort of traditional kind of naughty kid at school, struggled with education, and kind of came through, ended up doing drama because that was sort of the only thing that would have him, basically the only place that would take him. I was quite aggressive but also anxious, and that was where the aggression was coming from. My friend Jack was also sort of struggling with anxiety and so on. So we'd all had a experience of how the traditional ideas of masculinity that we'd grown up with hadn't quite served us. And we were aware that they didn't quite serve lots of people, and that actually we needed to really reimagine that. And that's part of what we set out to do, was help young people reimagine their ideas of masculinity, because they often don't serve men and boys, and they don't serve everybody else either. And so we thought we had the training and that we should do something about it. And we were all 21, 22, and had no idea what was coming our way. And if we had, we maybe would have made a different decision. But Jack had a chat with us at a house party, and Voicebox was born at a house party at university. So, that says something about the levels of professionalism at the start. And off the back of that, we started having kind of conversation about what we would do. We wrote a business plan. There was a funding application that we could do at our university, so we applied for that. We gave it the name Voicebox that we just came up with. We applied for the funding. We got £10,000 worth of funding from the university, which was amazing. The feedback they gave us was, your passion and enthusiasm was brilliant, the business plan, not so good. So we then went back and sort of slightly redrafted the business plan, slightly left it behind. The other piece of feedback they gave us was also they weren't sure about the name. They thought it sounded like a karaoke bar. But we stuck with it. So that kind of gave us a bit of a confidence boost. That gave us the first moment we went, okay, this might actually be something that's not just a pipe dream, something we can actually do. And that was back in 2018. And then in 2019, we kind of set everything up. And, you know, we kind of started with very big ideas, very grand plans, and we set ourselves up as a theatre company. So our official name is Voicebox Theatre CIC. We've now kind of just gone to Voicebox, but we started off as a theatre company and focused a lot more on kind of grants and getting and doing big projects and youth theatres and all of these sorts of things. And part of what we realised was that wasn't going to sustain us. That wasn't a viable way to have enough cash flow basically to keep ourselves fed and keep ourselves with a living and support all of us. So that was a big learning curve, was working out actually, you know, what side of this can we keep? What side of the kind of arts-based stuff can we keep? And what bit do we need to get rid of, basically? And so over time, through that kind of trial and error, we learned what worked. And so now we focus a lot more on basically selling our workshops, assemblies, staff trainings, parent trainings, and so on to schools, to local authorities, kind of educational impact. And we have done some larger projects with local authorities, which have been brilliant and have gone really well, which has been wonderful. We've also hired a team of facilitators to help us run the sessions as well. So back in the day, it was only us doing it. Back in the day, we were also only part-time. We've only gone full-time in the last 2 years. And so much less about theatre, much more about kind of engagement now. And our content and model have also changed quite a lot. So, you know, the big mission now, the big focus is on healthy masculinity. The big focus is on having positive conversations about masculinity. That's the big gap, the big problem that we're seeing at the moment, is that a lot of boys feel like, rightly or wrongly, nobody's listening to them. Everybody thinks masculinity is toxic and negative, and by extension, everybody thinks they are as well. So one of the key needs that we're seeing is for positive conversations about masculinity to help young men embody a version of masculinity that they can be proud of and that benefits them and everybody else. And that's the key idea here. And it's there's a man called Richard Reeves who talks about the fact that, you know, what's he say? What's the quote? The quote is, "A world of floundering men is unlikely to be a world of flourishing women as well." That it's not an either or, and this is one of the things that we communicate a lot to young people. We don't either focus on women and we don't either focus on men. That actually helping everybody to thrive involves working with both sides of that coin, with all sides of the coin. So helping men and boys thrive, partly because a lot of the ideas of masculinity that negatively impact women and girls around sort of misogyny and so on also often have connections with poor mental health in men and boys themselves. So promoting healthy masculinity benefits everybody, and that's one of the key things that we've started to communicate to schools. You know, when we started, schools would say, you know, why do I want a workshop on masculinity? Just give me a workshop on bullying or healthy relationships. I don't need a masculinity workshop. And now, through the way that things have changed and our social discourse has changed, and unfortunately for us, you know, one of the downsides of doing this work is that every time something terrible happens, like Sarah Everard's murder, like Andrew Tate becoming massively popular, like adolescents, suddenly there's a renewed focus on the topic. There's a renewed focus and a renewed need for things. So unfortunately that kind of correlates with us suddenly getting really busy again when something terrible happens. So that's kind of where, you know, where we were, where we are now. And so what we actually do is student workshops, assemblies and programs. So we have one-off workshops we do with mixed gender groups all the way from Key Stage 2, which is years 5 and 6, all the way up to 12 and 13 in schools. We have assemblies as well, so often we found, one of the big things we found is that schools need a low-cost offer, particularly comprehensive schools. They need an offer that they can get us in, they can do the work, but in a way that is kind of balancing their budget and us to do the work. And then we have some long-term programs as well. We also have staff training programs and parent webinars and parent sessions as well. So we're kind of looking to have a holistic approach to working with schools, working in those 3 different areas. Because if we can change the culture about what it means to be a man in those 3 different places, school, peer groups and the home, we can go really far in really changing and really moving the needle on what it means to be a man in these areas. And so yeah, that's kind of the what we do and so on. And so the story is start up with 4 mates, lots of trial and error. One of the big things that we always talk about is that all 4 of us, when we founded it, had hair, and now 2 of us no longer have hair. So it has been a stressful journey, you know, particularly as 4 drama boys, 4 drama students, learning how to run a business, learning what to do, learning how to sell, you know, learning all those things has been really difficult. And you know, my own role, I initially took on the kind of administration side of things, the bookkeeping side of things, and that decision was made purely because I got the best grade at GCSE, not through any other skill or desire to do that job. But we have done a lot of trial and error. There's been a lot of trial and error, and one of the big things that I think helped us was getting some of that funding to have a bit of a space to do that trial and error. We were also very young. I wouldn't recommend setting up a business in your early 20s, but we had the space to do a lot of trial and error and work things out and kind of almost wait the market out. And so in a way, when suddenly masculinity became a really important topic, we were ready, we were there to go. So that's been something that's been really beneficial for us. And hopefully it's going to lead to a more sustainable business moving forward. And you know, we have had, particularly in the last year or so, have had a lot of increased traction, a lot of increased work. We've had some massive things coming through with local authorities and projects that have gone really well. We worked out that one of the things we found was that we were selling to schools, and that was kind of trickling in, but actually what we wanted to work out is how can we find one organisation that can put us in touch with 50 different schools, or 10 different schools or 20 different schools. You do the work of getting in touch with one person to then be in with 50 or 60. So we started thinking about local authorities, academy trusts, how do we get to those slightly bigger places that we can work with. And we also, this year, as of May last year, finally, for the first time ever, turned a bit of profit, which was brilliant. So, we haven't had any investment from anywhere. We've kind of bootstrapped it ourselves. We've done it ourselves. We set the business up whilst I was working in a pub part-time. My colleagues were working as facilitators themselves part-time. We've just sort of tried to get things going and up until last year, paying ourselves absolute pennies, really struggling with that. So turning a bit of a profit and that kind of cash flow working better has been a real positive for us. February of last year, we basically had a conversation. We said, if it keeps going like this, we can't do it anymore. Something had to change. And so we basically worked out, well, what is it that needs to change? We need more money. We need more cash flow. So I went, and one of the big things that we've done over the last sort of 18 months is really focusing on learning how to sell, basically. And as impact founders, as arts people, as creatives, it felt like a dirty thing for us to do. Sell, learn how to sell, go and sell to people, go and do that. It felt like something that was dirty. And actually we learned that it wasn't dirty because we needed to do it in order to make the work happen. Without it, we wouldn't make the impact. So that learning how to sell, I talked to a friend of mine who works for a kind of tech company selling B2B software, all this sort of stuff. And he gave me a lot of really good pointers on how we could set up our business in a way that will help us to sell to people and show them that actually this is positive and the value of the work and so on. And I think one of the big things that's happened over the last sort of 6 months is that we've had a real process of actually enjoying the journey. I had a moment in September of this year where we had a meeting, us 3 co-founders, and suddenly I noticed something had been different. I was going, what's going different? And I realized we were laughing with each other again. And we hadn't actually laughed with each other in a really long time because of the stress, because of the cash flow issues, we just hadn't enjoyed the journey with each other. And part of that was solved by, 6 months ago, we brought on a business mentor as well, which was brilliant for us. I know you mentioned it, that having somebody who's kind of done it, who's been there, who knows some of the pitfalls, and also for us 3, could sit on the outside and look at things and go, why are you doing it that way? Why? Why are you doing it that way? And we'd never interrogated things. He said, why are you doing it that way? And then we could actually make a change. And the big thing he said to us was, you guys keep talking about the organization. You 3 are the organization. Without you 3, there is no organization. So you have to do this in a way that works for you and that means that you enjoy the journey and that you're able to do it and so on. And that's been a really big a really big change for us. So yeah, that's sort of a little bit about where we've been, kind of how we got to where we are. In terms of sort of where we're looking to go, you know, we're still growing, we're still kind of building our customer base. One of the big things that we're starting to work out now is what level of tech can we incorporate in the business to get some of our time back? Again, as a drama student, creative type, the sort of AI is quite scary, but thinking about how can we incorporate some of those things into the business to get our time back, to buy our time back is a really big part of what we've been thinking about recently. And then also on the kind of sort of client-facing end, how can we, at the minute, a lot of what we do is quite one-off. How can we help schools sustainably do this work and promote healthy masculinity, help boys to thrive throughout the whole school sort of ecosystem more sustainably? So yeah, that's us. That's Voicebox. Thank you very much. Thank you.